Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fulfillment Project. My guest today, the Peter H. in studio. I can't wait for this podcast to blow up so I can have all my guests in studio. Pete, thanks for coming by today.
Andrew, a joy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Pete's a husband, a father of five, and one of the most consequential Christian policy voices in Ohio. He holds a master's in theology from the University of Notre Dame. He has worked with immigrant families, inner city youth, and the homeless, the unborn, and so many more. He's the Senior Fellow for Strategic Initiatives at the Center for Christian Virtue, Ohio's largest Christian public policy organization, and he hosts the Say Yes to Life radio show, heard across Ohio and Michigan. Peter spent his career at the intersection of faith, family, and the public square, and today we're going to find out what drives a man who has made it his life's mission to say yes when most people stay quiet. Peter, welcome.
Andrew, again, it's really great to be here. I got to tell you right off the bat, though, I am not one of the most influential voices here in the state of Ohio. Maybe in my own household, but not the state of Ohio. So I appreciate that.
Wow. Well, you're going to have to teach me how you became influential in your own household. I'm still working on that.
It's taken a lot of work. 10 years of marriage or 11 years of marriage now.
I believe it. And a big shout out, Nick Graff's letting us use his studio today while mine's under construction. And another shout out to Pete's radio show. I used to be a guest once a month, a couple times a year on your Five Guys segment. Where can people tune into your radio show? Is it weekly, Pete?
Yes, it's weekly, annunciationradio.com. And it's actually heard throughout Michigan now because Ave Maria Radio Network has picked it up as well. And then some parts of Northwest Indiana. So we're in 3 different states, which is, super exciting. But I still have people, to talk about the Five Guys show. That was a great show. You brought a lot of energy to the show. Nick De La Torre brought himself, which is, and then we had some other great men on the show as well. I missed that.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
That was a good time. Let's do a lightning round. I just want to loosen up a little bit, limber up.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in full disclosure, I've never watched any one of your podcasts before. So it's not because I don't love you and not because I don't want to. I just am so busy right now. So whatever you're throwing at me, I am not prepared for today. So whatever it is, make sure be gentle.
It'll make it even better.
Yeah.
Before we get into your story, Pete, I want to throw 5 hot ones at you. No prep, no filter, just like you said. Okay, so this is a culture war grenade. I'm just lobbing it over at you. Is America a Christian nation? Yes or no? And why does it matter?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm going to take the position that yes, it is a Christian nation because it's based upon Christian ideals. And the cultural mindset at that time of the founders, even if they themselves weren't necessarily Christians, they lived in a culturally Christian mindset. And so that the way that the world was structured, the norms and the values, what people expected, how people thought others should be treated, it came from a Christian mindset. It came from an understanding that the world was created by God, that there was an almighty power that was in control, and that there was a providence being played out in the midst of what was taking place in the colonies at that time as well. The second thing I would point to, just from a very practical perspective, though, while our Constitution doesn't necessarily say anything of the nature that, we're a Christian nature, if you go to each one of the state legislators and the founding documents of those states, many of those states, like Virginia, for example, said, we exist for the propagation of the gospel. So those
still to this day?
That's a great question. I'd have to check
but
what their
state. Back in the day, for sure.
Yeah, when they were founded, those state constitutions said we exist for the propagation of the gospel. They're here to share Jesus Christ. So those individual states believed not only in Almighty Creator, but in Jesus Christ Himself. The other thing is, you'll look at some of the articulation between or behind the Declaration of Independence as well. Those ideas, they don't just come out of the blue, right? And so if you're familiar with William Blackstone, if you're familiar with some of the thinkers, even Thomas Jefferson was borrowing from, if you're familiar with the individual letters that the founders were writing back and forth to each other, they're quoting natural law. They're quoting the scriptures. So these people had a very deep and rich understanding and appreciation that what they were building here in the United States of America came from somewhere, and it came from this belief in an almighty God who is in control of the universe. And ultimately, they were formed very much by their culture, which was a culture of Christianity at that time here in the early Americas.
I would have said that all the founders were Christian, but you
Mhm.
said even if they weren't Christian, were some of them not Christian?
Yeah, I mean, there's some evidence to say that some were Masons, that they kind of believe that there's many different paths to God, that there's maybe some value in each different religion to a certain extent. Jefferson is famous for being more of a rationalist, where he actually took out the miracles that Jesus did in his Bible, and so his approach or his thought was, yeah, I like this Jesus guy, I like his teaching, but this miracle stuff, that's just kind of crazy, right? So, I think each one of the founders, we'd have to go through each one,
Yeah.
have a different understanding of Jesus and who Jesus was. There's probably some that are just intensely Christian. We know that for sure. I mean, John Carroll, for example, the first Catholic bishop of the United States, obviously very Christian, very Catholic. But each of them, I think we're like each one of us are on our own journey. So when we say they were Christian, well, what does that mean? Right. And I think that means a little bit different for each one of them at that time.
That's a great insight. The parenting bomb. I'm going to hit you. You're a father of
Yeah.
5. You haven't had any more kids since we talked last, have you?
I've got one up in heaven, so we always count number 6.
A
Yeah.
father of
Yeah.
6, which counts, I believe.
Yeah.
Public school or private school? If you have 5 kids and limited income, what do you tell a struggling Ohio family right now?
Yeah. So my first reaction would be neither. If you can homeschool, even if it's financially really, really difficult on the family, do it. The most important years of a child's life, 0 through 18, you got them for 18 years and then they're gone. They're maybe going to college, maybe they're getting a job, whatever it might be. Your most important role that you have as a father or mother is to form those young kids to be saints. And as much as I'm a proponent and believer in the power of Catholic education, sometimes I've been to a school where the first teacher I meet, faithful Catholic, is loving, is great, believes in the teachings of the church. Next teacher, I mean, an example, when I taught myself in a Catholic school, I would try to teach from the authentic teachings of the Catholic Church, the magisterium. They went to the next classroom and it was, yes, I'm Catholic, but the Pope is wrong about this and the church is wrong about this and so on and so forth. So we want to make sure that our kids are on fire with the faith. And so for Laura and I, particularly at home, to be able to mold them and shape them and help them understand and see Jesus in everything in each one of their subjects, we think we're giving them the best education they can receive. Now, if your kids have to go to school because you need 2 incomes for whatever reason,
Or single parent families.
all those things, 100% please choose a private Christian Catholic school today. And because of EdChoice here in the state of Ohio, Christian private education is very affordable nowadays. Where almost literally the entire education can be paid for because of what's available from the State House. And a lot of that's work of the Center for Christian Virtue, of which I work. And there's more work we're doing to make sure that more money will follow the students as well in the years to come. But with that being said, to have your child in an environment where it's okay to pray, it's okay to talk about Jesus, that's advantageous. It's beautiful. And so take advantage of that if you can do that. Because the public school system, if you send your kids to Caesar, they're going to end up voting like Romans. And that's what we've seen in our culture and society today. The public education system, in many ways, the foundations of it, Ben Sass was just talking about this the other day, was to basically try to get people out of private schools because they were frustrated and afraid and upset that they were learning about Jesus. And so it's a system that is not most conducive for human flourishing. You put 25 kids in a classroom, they're all sitting in rows, they're all expected to sit there and just force-fed with a particular education, sometimes education which is unfortunately now just really biased with a worldview which is antithetical to the Christian worldview. Your kids aren't going to be better for it. So
What do you think about the argument I've heard, and it's compelling to me, where because of reasons like you just said, you go to a Christian Catholic school and you don't see Christian Catholic behavior. So kids identify that with like, I don't want to be a Catholic. That person's an idiot.
yeah.
Is it better to send them to a public school that isn't explicitly Christian so that when they're at home, they have the foundations of Christianity. And then when they're at school, they're going for essentially a liberal arts education, and that's separated from the faith so they don't get distracted. I mean, how many people go to a Catholic high school and fall away from the faith. Instead of deepening their faith, it actually drives them away in some ways. Hey, everyone, quick 10-second ask from you. If you're digging the show and you're watching on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up and comment your favorite part. If you're listening on Spotify, please give this show a 5-star rating. On iTunes, please leave a quick review. If you're listening on Substack, please subscribe and join the comments. You may want to subscribe in a few different places. For example, YouTube, you get all of our short content, 60-second to 90-second clips, our segments where we segment out 1 to 6 minute different segments of each episode. And then if you subscribe on the Substack, I summarize the episode in a newsletter. You can read it in a couple minutes. And then a couple days after the episode, I put out a self-reflection guide to help you personalize the content to your life. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Please share it with a friend.
Yeah, number one, the faith is more caught than it is taught. And so the way that those teachers are living at the Catholic schools is really going to be important as far as how the faith is passed down. And so that's why I just want to hammer home so much to our Catholic institutions, whether it's our church, whether it's our diocese, whether it's a school, that who we hire really matters. We have to ask the people who are coming into an interview, who is Jesus Christ to you? Do you have a relationship with the living God? And if we're afraid to ask that question, then we need to get out of that position. I've been in Catholic institutions where we're afraid to ask people what their faith journey is like. And if you're sharing the faith and you can't share what your faith journey is like, then there's an issue, there's a challenge, there's a problem there. So I'm in 100% agreement sometimes. And why we homeschool is we don't want to send our kids into a Catholic school and then they walk out lukewarm Catholics, or they walk out Catholics with views that say, yeah, you know what, abortion's okay in some circumstances. Like, no, we don't want that, right? So we have a huge issue we are refusing to really address in our Catholic institutions today. And it breaks my heart. But to your point, so would you rather send them to a public school where they know that they're not going to encounter that? I would say no, because the culture is just so strong that, especially during those formative years, when you're thinking about what is good, true, and beautiful, K through 8, you're learning, like kids from a psychological perspective, like you need to know what is black and white. We want to start with our 5-year-olds and teach them what is gray. Their minds can't handle that. They need to know that this is wrong and this is right. So to send them into...
Is there such a thing?
What's that?
As wrong and right.
100%.
How
yes.
do we know?
There is the way, the truth, and the life. I think we can know in a lot of different ways. We can know from the natural order by which God has established the universe. So, there's that old example. You're walking down the street and you find a watch just sitting on there on the street. Now, if you pick up that watch, you wouldn't think that this just spontaneously combusted and became a working mechanism, right? There must be some intelligence behind it. The same way that, we walk out and we look at the universe, or we just wonder at the human body. I mean, study the human eye for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like these are incredibly complex systems. And, even most of the world is very, gosh, you got me off on a tangent here, but most of the world is very formulated by a Darwinian mindset of evolution. But even Darwin's understanding of the way that the world has revolved or evolved, it's basically scientifically been proven incorrect at this point. So, not to say that there isn't certain evolution that does take place, but the Darwinian theory, which really influenced much of the 19th century around the world, has been disproven. But there was people like Adolf Hitler.
How so?
Let's look at the very earliest of, let's look at the genetic code, right? So any defect in the genetic code that you have today is just that. It is a defect. So, someone with trisomy 18, made in the image and likeness of God, but something's wrong at the genetic level, right? That their chromosomes are not as they should be. So they're made in the image and likeness of God. They're deserving of the right to life. We shouldn't, as that popular YouTube caster just said, we're going to abort our child because it find out that they have trisomy 21.
Is that Down syndrome?
Yeah, Down syndrome.
Okay.
but that is a defect in the code which doesn't enable it to progress, right? So Darwin thought that the genetic code literally would completely morph or change into different species. Okay. We don't see that. We don't see the evidence for that. We don't see the millions of what should be skeletal markers that would say, yes, there has been a progression from fish to humans or fish to apes or whatever it might be, whatever that belief is. But that was the Darwinian view, was that we all developed from primordial soup as single cell organisms. Although at the very beginnings of the universe, the way that, again, Darwin viewed it, the oxygen in the air that was not available to actually help those organisms develop. That's a whole nother kind of subject to this. But basically, that evolutionary biology has just been proven untrue because there isn't the evidence for it.
Why do so many people hold Darwin on such a pedestal if that's the case?
Well, I think a lot of the work that he was doing was groundbreaking at the time, and people are always looking and searching for meaning and purpose and for fulfillment. And so Darwin gave some scientific evidence to explanation to why things were the way that they were. And it was also at a time, going back to Jefferson and how we started the conversation, it was a time of intellectual revolution. We're coming out of the Reformation. We're coming out of the Enlightenment. People are rejecting the supernatural. And so Darwin gave a very natural way to explain why things were the way that they were. And it took off. And
we all experience evolution in our own lives in little ways. Like I evolved from a child to an adult. My knowledge evolves, relationships evolve. So you use that word so interchangeably in life that it's like, yeah, Darwin created evolution. Did he create evolution? I mean, you're not a scientist, but
yeah, we are way off in subjects that I am not experts in.
You mentioned you were talking Adolf Hitler a second ago. Let's get back on track. I don't even know if that was on track, but something about where were you going with that thought?
Yeah, it was just a belief that there's because we see it today as well, the belief that we can kind of evolve into a perfect race, evolve into, if we just get rid of all the defects, all the kids with Down syndrome, then humanity will fully flourish. It's why we have this bioengineering movement now, because we have the capability to create, babies in a dish, through the IVF process and whatnot, that we're like, yeah, let's choose. I mean, literally right now, Andy, there is no laws and regulations on in vitro fertilization in our country right now. And often in these cases, like Germany, Italy, they have laws that you can only create one embryo or 3 embryos that you're going to actually implant. All those babies need to be implanted in the mother's womb. They all need to be given a chance to fight for life, right? Here in the country, our country, you can create 21 embryos. You can create 100 embryos if you want, and then choose what you think is the best embryo out of that lot. So even if you don't have the Paris Hilton mindset, I think she created 21 embryos, and she was looking for, I think, a girl, and she finally got the girl. And so she's like, all right, that's the one I'm going to, implant in my womb. Even if you don't have that kind of mindset, often a couple who's just struggling with fertility will go in and the doctors say, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to create 5 embryos, and then we'll choose the genetically strongest embryo to be implanted. And then you can decide what you want to do with these other 4 embryos later on in the process. So right there, we're practicing eugenics. We're choosing the strongest genetically geared human for, for life. That's a really scary thing to do. And so the Darwinian mindset, which is we evolve and the strongest species survive, led into, this came out, before, Adolf Hitler kind of rises to power. And so Hitler has this idea or understanding, there's a master race. There is a species that's going to evolve, and it's the white Aryan race that's going to be the strongest, that we will rule the world in a sense. So in the same way, we're practicing that in some other ways through this bioengineering today, where we're saying, let's create this perfect race without defects. But Pope Leo was just talking about this in his encyclical on AI. It is our defects, it is our weaknesses, it is our faults, if you will, that make us very human. And there's something beautiful about, even me on this podcast. We've gotten into two subjects, again, I'm not experts on. The founding of the country and Darwinian evolution. I haven't talked about this since my freshman year of college, but as I'm thinking back to it, it's like, that's okay. I wasn't perfect, but people now on your podcast can go out and they can research this themselves. They can look into
creating interest. And I always think idiosyncrasies are what usually annoy you about someone the most, your spouse, your friend. Everyone's got a tick or a couple that drives you. But those are also the things that you miss the most when they're gone. They go on vacation, they pass away. You miss those idiosyncrasies. So I haven't read the new encyclical, but I think the idiosyncrasies are what make us us, or else we're just machines. And then what difference is it?
Yeah, that's right. No, that's absolutely. And I haven't read the encyclical either. I read the Cliff Notes version. So I used AI to read the encyclical on AI.
Brilliant. All right, this is supposed to be a lightning round, but I just can't help. I can't help. You're such a font of wisdom. Identity. Should a biological male be allowed to compete in girls' sports in Ohio? One sentence.
No, it's just silly. We have to respect and love the girls and women in our lives, and we are genetically, we are physically, we are psychologically. Like there's people who study the brain, they can be shown two brains and the way that those brains are neurologically reacting to different stimuli. And they can identify with a 99.9% accuracy rate, that's a boy and that's a girl. The way that we are made is just simply different. Let's respect and celebrate those differences. But boys, because they are physically made differently, should not be competing in women's sports.
Why is it always boys and girls sports? Why aren't girls competing in boys sports? Or is it happening? We just don't hear about it as much.
I mean, I don't hear about that happening at all. And I think it's, you took Leah Thomas, for example, the swimmer there, in college, who competed against Riley Gaines. And of course, Riley gained a lot of popularity because of, she fought back against, I can't remember as Michael Thomas, I think maybe was his name, but, he was finishing towards the bottom of the pack, competing against the men. Join women's sports, he starts winning a lot of women's races. And so I think you see that because with the whole transgender issue, I think you also see more men transitioning to be women than you see the other way around. Why that is, I don't know. I think there's something psychological there. Something cultural as well. And maybe it's because we're living in a time of a crisis of masculinity. What does it truly mean to be a man? That we're struggling. Some men are struggling to try to figure that out. And so they're even looking in some strange places to do that. Last point I'll make on this. Bishop Barron talks about like the phenomenon of Halloween today. And I don't know about you. I don't like Halloween in our country today. I mean, you go into our neighborhood and there is those big skeletons like 10 feet tall and everybody celebrates it like Christmas, right? Well, Barron says like when we push down the truth, the need of the spiritual, the need of a connection with God, and we suppress it, it oozes out in all these weird ways. And so Halloween is an example. We need a connection with death as humans. We need a connection with the afterlife, with something greater than ourselves. But because we repress it and we're not going to church, it oozes out in Halloween and all these kind of weird phenomenon. I think in the same way, because we need an understanding of our identity and our purpose with God the Father, we don't have it. And we suppress it or we look other ways, it oozes out in these really weird ways. Like maybe I'm in the wrong body.
Fascinating. Yeah, I'm curious. Like there aren't as many women competing in men's sports. I'm sure there are some. It also seems like you mostly hear on the news about men transitioning to be women, not vice versa. I'm sure it's happening, just not as much.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder why that is.
Well, again, I'm going to opine on subjects I'm not experts on, but we have seen, for whatever reason, in our country, there's been some studies out there that have shown, men's testosterone rates are also dropping. Decreasing. What's going on in our environment? We do know that there's a lot of plastics in our body. We do know that there's, a lot of contraceptives that have now pervaded, even our water systems. I mean, if we're taking those in, that's becoming a part of our body. We're flushing down the toilet. Students for Life has done a lot of work on this. I haven't read a lot of the research, but it kind of makes sense. If we're polluting the very world in which we inhabit with a lot of things that would affect our very makeup as human persons, the plastics, the contraceptives, all of that, I would think, is going to have an effect on us in one way, shape, or form.
You would think, yeah, I don't know. The plastic thing is just personally hard for me to get rid of because it's convenient. It's nice. It doesn't break. The
Yeah.
metal, the
hmm
glass, it's so expensive. It's noisy.
hmm
It breaks.
Yeah, I love
It-
plastics, but
yeah.
is it affecting us? It might be,
And how
So
much, well, anyway, I'm
yeah.
not going down that road. You spent years working with the homeless and immigrants before becoming a policy advocate. Did that experience ever put you in tension with conservative politics?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think the immigration issue probably puts me a little bit in contention for sure. I remember just making a Facebook post about Haitian immigrants because there was a big blow up in Springfield about the Haitian immigrants that were kind of living in the country and stuff. And, there is so while we raise our kids, going back to the beginning of the podcast, with black and white, as we grow older, we understand that there's going to be some gray areas, right? And so we have to, live in the gray a little bit. And with immigration, I think it's one of those issues that I think the solution is somewhat found in the gray. There's some black and white in it, but I think there's three principles as Catholics we should hold. First and foremost is the dignity of the human person. So every immigrant that we encounter, whether they're here legally or illegally, every person we disagree with on this issue, they are all still made in the image and likeness of God and are deserving of fundamental human respect, no matter what. And we shouldn't denigrate a whole group of people, even if they are here illegally, because, we feel like that helps our particular position, whatever it might be. So that's the first principle, human dignity, no matter where you stand on this particular issue. The second principle is this: a nation has a right and a responsibility, a duty to protect its own borders. It is not a nation if it's not protecting its borders. And we totally abdicated our responsibility, particularly under the Biden administration, allowing millions of people, we have no idea where they are coming from, into our country and into our nation. That's dangerous for us as the citizens of this nation. And it's ridiculous. You absolutely need a strong border. Pope Francis, who was, very much a proponent of, individuals being able to immigrate to, different nations and countries, and talked about caring for the refugee. He said so much in an interview that a nation has a right and responsibility to protect its own borders. Here's the last principle, though, that I think we need to keep in mind, and this is maybe the most difficult. The wealthier nations, this is directly from the Catechism, the wealthier nations have a responsibility, to the extent that they are able, to help the foreigner in search of a better life. That's tough, because where is that line, right? But I tell you, I've spent time in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. I've been on 2 mission trips there. When you encounter little kids eating mud cakes for lunch, like literally that their mothers are taking mud, they're forming it in a little cake, and they're sprinkling whatever little vegetable they can find just on top. And the kid's eating mud for his lunch. And he's slowly dying, because the kids who are black there, they have black hair, but their hair is starting to turn orange because of malnutrition. And so, they're on their way, unless they reverse this, they're going to die just simply because they don't have enough vitamins in their diet. It makes you kind of relook at everything we have in this nation, what you care about. So,
It makes me sick thinking
yeah,
about my own 2 boys.
yeah.
Thinking about to me, that goes more to corruption, though, because I think in some of those situations, Haiti comes to mind. There's a lot of money going to those places, and it's not getting to the people that need the help.
Yeah.
The bureaucrats and the agencies and the NGOs are siphoning off this money and enriching themselves and letting the people suffer, the people that they should. Is that fair or am I off base?
No, I think that the whole idea of, either giving someone a fish or teaching them how to fish is really important. And I think we've seen success in some of the third world countries where there's microloans that are set up, but they're set up in such a way that you help someone sustain their life rather than just giving them free stuff. And I think that's so true even in helping the impoverished in our own society. When I used to work at Catholic Charities, it's, giving a hand up more than anything,
But that's different than the corruption piece. I think that's a cool model, the microloans, and you help people build their own businesses.
Yeah.
But
there's
I think evil, they're stealing good money that's going for a good purpose and putting it to selfish wants.
Not only that, but they're tying the aid that they are going to give to these countries to abortion, to contraception. So in Haiti, for example, there was pressure on the government when I was there, and there was a debate. And so the Haitians were talking about it, whether or not they were going to accept the allowance of abortion in their country, because the aid was being tied to, I think, I don't know if it was Biden who was the president when I was there, or it could have been President Obama when I was there, but they weren't going to be able to receive the aid unless they allowed abortion in the country. So you have that too.
What's wrong with birth control?
Yeah, well, I think birth control is why we have abortion. And so we can dive into that.
What do you mean?
Yeah. So
what came first, birth control or abortion?
Oh, well, birth control and abortion have been around since the beginning almost of human existence, right? I mean, you have, I think St. Augustine actually even writes about Romans are trying to keep down their population, and birth control, infanticide was just a part of the culture to a certain extent. So, you have, there's old wives' tales that, if you jumped a certain amount of times, you could naturally cause a miscarriage and stuff, right? Women in England, queens actually even did this at times. So I think they've both been around. But so let me connect these two and share why birth control, though, leads to abortion, because I think it's the mindset that is created. So,
well, I think you'd say it's bad.
Birth control?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So wrap that into there too.
Yeah.
Why is it bad?
So anytime we have medicine or anytime we take anything in our body, it's to make those organs or whatever is not functioning correctly, to make it function correctly. Birth control is the one glaring example where we'll say, let's take a pill to have one of our systems, one of our organs not do what it was intended to do, and that is to create life. So the first commandment that God gives us,
wanted to hit you with an argument about supplementation, and a lot of people supplement, but that's to enhance organ output typically, or to optimize an organ or a muscle doing something, or your brain or whatever.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm trying to think of arguments here. Keep going.
Please, yeah. So birth control stops your reproductive organs from reproducing. So let's just start from the natural side. I mean, that just simply doesn't kind of make sense. You're pumping your body with a hormone that it's not meant to be pumped with to start with. So there's that. From the spiritual side, the first commandment that God gives us in Scripture is, well, we're told in Genesis 1:27, we're made in God's image and likeness. And then he says, be fruitful and multiply. It's the very first thing he tells us to do is go make babies, go fill the earth. And you don't have to take a very far walk outside to see that our God is a creator. He loves life. He loves things. He loves lots of little things. He's got billions of ants all around the world. He's got, millions of birds and fish in the sea.
We just ordered countertops for our new kitchen.
Yeah.
Hidden inside of mountains. You would never know unless you cut the mountain open. There is artwork. It's everywhere you look is beauty. The beauty of creation is so astonishing.
Yeah.
It takes my breath away. Yeah. Violets hidden in the grass that no one will ever see. But when you pull one up that you would usually just trample over, it's so intricate.
Yeah.
I love that point you just made. Just our God is such a generous God.
And he's a creator, and his love overflows into creation. He wants to continue to create. And so we have taken the very process of our ability to co-create with him, and we've said no. We've said the very act that you've given us, this act of procreation, which unites husband and wife in this beautiful bond of unity, which makes them one, which bonds them through the pheromone oxytocin together as husband and wife together, so that they could then co-create with God. We've said, No, we've added birth control. We've added contraception in here, which has cut off the very nature of our being as male and female. And that's why I think we eventually find ourselves in a place today where people are struggling with their very identity, because we've said to the body that you are no longer going to be designed to do what the body is created to do. And we are souls that are enfleshed in this body. So yes, that's going to then cause confusion to my sexuality, to my gender. If I no longer have a clear understanding that my body is meant for unity and procreative activity, then what is my body for? Well, then of course my body can be manipulated. I could chop off my sexual organs, because if they don't have an end purpose or meaning, then what is it for? And that's what birth control, that's what contraception does. It creates a mindset that none of this has ultimate meaning, these bodies. And so when a woman is contracepting, for example, maybe she's even in a marriage, right? She's in this loving, committed relationship in a marriage, but she's contracepting, because they both are focused on their career right now. They want to make a little bit of money. Maybe they have some debt from coming from college, and so they're not ready to have kids. They are contracepting. They get pregnant. What's that woman's first reaction?
Sadness,
surprise. Something went wrong, right? Because she's contracepting and she should not be getting pregnant. So something went wrong. So my first understanding, or my first attitude or appreciation for the life inside me is, this is something wrong. Something should not be happening. This is a mistake. This is versus the mindset of doing it God's way. We're having sex. A baby has resulted. We have followed order design. Something went right. Something's really beautiful that is here. And so my whole mindset and heart is life is good versus life is a mistake. And that leads to then this mindset of, all right, well, how do I deal with the mistake? Abortion quickly follows from that rotten tree.
What about the struggle that kids are?
Oh, they are the most difficult thing. I mean, being a father, it is the most challenging thing I have ever done in my entire life. Financially, it's hard. Emotionally, it's hard. Physically, it's hard. I mean, every other night, getting up a couple times a night because, if it's one thing if one kid's getting up because he wet the bed, but then the other kid had a bad dream, and then the other kid's throwing up, and then go out and, oh, by the way, be a, pro-life leader, in the public sphere and do podcasts and whatever. You're going to make a lot of mistakes then, and you're not going to be as sharp. But despite all of that, we have a mindset in our country though, too, where, we're afraid to just be a little, get dirty and mess up. And we let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And even in our own lives, when we think about financially, so because we have this whole question, why are people not having kids today?
Yeah.
A lot of reasons for that. But, one of the reasons that you do hear a lot from secular people is well, or even from Catholics or Christians, I just don't have enough money for enough kids. Mm-hmm. Look, my grandparents didn't have enough money for their kids, but they had 14 kids.
14?
They had 14 kids. They lived on the west side of Cleveland, right off Detroit Avenue. They didn't have enough money to keep having kids, but they were obedient to the Lord and they were open to life. And
you think they regretted it ever?
I'm sure. But it doesn't mean I think they would change it. And in the same way, we today though are just I can't do it. Well, maybe we got to look at our Netflix subscription. Maybe we need to look at the type of car that we're driving. Maybe we need to look at the type of house we're in. I mean, we're moving to a new house. We really wanted more land. Super excited to have 3 acres of land so we can eventually maybe have some cows or sheep or something like that, become a little bit more self-sustaining, get closer to the earth. Very excited about that opportunity. But when I talked to some of the older people in our church, and they lived in half the square footage of a house that we did, and they had 8 kids and I've got 5. Or I go to Ecuador, as I have, and there's literally one room shack where they're raising, 5 or 6 kids. Do we need all the stuff that we have in our nation and in our country? And I would argue, no, we don't. We need less stuff and more kids.
Yeah. Less. Just in my personal life, I feel like I'm always consuming. I'm always drinking coffee. I'm always drinking water. I'm drinking an afternoon tea or energy drink, or I'm putting in a nicotine pouch, or I'm eating a meal, or so it just feels like consumption is bred into us, because I focus on discipline quite a bit. And to try and gain a little bit of that control back, I've just started fasting the first week of the month from caffeine and nicotine, because those are 2 things I reach for in boredom. And everything I've been hearing on my podcast is like, you got to be bored. You got to create space. You need silence.
Yeah.
And I believe it. But it does not happen by accident. If you don't intentionally structure that boredom and time in. And so I can't believe how many minutes a day I spend getting a coffee, driving to the coffee store. It's just like, I'm bored. I'm between tasks. I want something to take my mind off of whatever's at hand. Coffee. Or I'm bored. I'm going to go into an uncomfortable situation, drop in a nicotine pouch. At least it provides me a little dopamine hit, a little serotonin, and I'm just riding. And
yeah, we got to get you off those nicotine patches for sure. But the
pouches, not patches,
or patches, whatever they are.
Have you tried them? They rock, dude. They rock. I'll fight you on this. I'll give them up every now and again. But actually, whenever someone asks, like, because I'll put one in and someone else will be like, should I try one of those? And I just say no, because nicotine is so addicting. And until pouches, I never smoked cigarettes or anything like that. Talk about being off topic and tangent, but I never did nicotine. I'd smoke cigars every now and again, but pouches are so delightful. They're so discreet. They're so easy. And I have on AI asked if they're healthy, because everyone says they're good for your brain. They're good for this and that. They're not. They build plaque in your veins. So if you do it for a long enough period of time, you have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, because there will be more plaque in your veins, and it actually constricts your veins. Like a bunch of my health nut friends I work out with are like, don't take nicotine after a workout or before, because it makes your veins smaller, so you can't get as good of a pump.
Interesting.
So it's not good for you.
Yeah.
But it sure does make you feel good. So anyway.
Thanks for making the argument for me. I appreciate it.
So don't start it, but I love it. Anyhow, all right, let's keep going. This is the last of the lightning round. And
I'm sorry that I made this a very long lightning round, but again, I wasn't prepared.
This is so good. No. This is exactly what I was hoping for.
Good.
Finish this sentence. A man who doesn't stand for something in today's culture is
weak. We need strong men today. And if you're not standing for something, you'll fall for anything. And so now more than ever, because of the crisis of masculinity, I do think abortion exists, for example, because of men. Men invented the contraceptive pill. We want to have sex without consequences. Women want a partner for life that will protect them and care for them. And I know there's women out there that just go out and have sex for fun and stuff like that. But the way that we are genetically wired, literally, is to have that. Women in particular is to have that kind of partner for life. Now, men were a little genetically wired differently, but because women have desired that lifelong union, that's made men better. And when we put our energy into one marriage and one woman and one family, it really helps us achieve our full human potential as far as who we've been called to be as a man. So, in today's culture and society, men are at fault for a lot. And if we're not standing for something, if we're not standing for truth in the public square, we're missing our very mission and purpose in life. And that is to share the truth of the gospel and who Jesus Christ is. And he was certainly a man that stood for truth. So if you're not like Christ, then you're missing the boat.
I wonder if that is why you just said one family, one wife,
yeah,
da-da-da. I wonder if that's why I've seen stats where men who get married earlier are more successful than men that get married later or not at all.
Hmm.
Success in broad studies is correlated to getting married earlier,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is interesting to me.
Well, and I just even from a personal perspective too, and then I think the studies bear this out. The Institute for Family Studies, Brad Wilcox has done a lot of work on this. But men who are married tend to be higher wage earners, right? They are more successful, even from the worldly sense, because they know that they are providing for something other than themselves. And when you know that your wife and your kids are dependent upon your paycheck and stuff, it makes you work hard at work. You're not going to slouch off because you're like, I got to make sure these kids are fed.
Yeah.
And if they're not, that's on me. And so it makes you work harder.
All right. I've got a whole thing here, Pete, but I guess let's just wrap this up. It is a fulfillment project.
Yeah.
So I want to know something from you. What does fulfillment mean to you? Have you always felt fulfilled? If not, when did you discover it? How do you live it out? How do you seek it? How do you go back to it on a regular basis?
Yeah, great question. So Matthew 26, Luke 22, Mark 14, John 6, 53 to 58, 1 Corinthians 10, and 1 Corinthians 11. Jesus says, "This is my body." And he holds it up. He says, "This is my blood, the blood of the new covenant." And in that moment, he transforms bread and wine into his body and his blood. And every Eucharistic miracle that they've tested, the Eucharist, which has transformed into actual blood at that time, they see that it comes from a particular area of the heart, right? So Christ is literally offering his heart, his very flesh for us on the altar.
Is that everyone they've done or just some of them?
According to my research now, there could be more that, has come from, maybe it's a different part of the body or something. But as far as what I've seen, it's all the same blood and it's all from the same part of the heart that Christ is offering on the altar for us.
Wow.
So, you may have some non-Catholic listeners, obviously, and I've just gone down a very deep Catholic rabbit hole. But when you're talking about where do you find fulfillment? Look, if God is real and he created the universe and he has a son, and his name is Jesus Christ, and he came to earth to die for our sins, and what he said is truth, either it's true or it's not. And either it is the Eucharist, either it is his body or blood, or it's not. And if it is God eternal, God present here on earth, there is nothing on this earth that's going to fulfill you anywhere close to the Eucharist, to the body and blood of Jesus Christ, because it's God himself. And we literally partake, we literally eat of God. We get to share in the divine life where his flesh becomes part of our flesh. There is a deep union, which then leads to this new person, a procreation of a new person where it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives within me. So any person, and again, no disrespect to anybody else you've had on the podcast or anything of that nature, but any person who's found their deepest fulfillment in Buddhist meditation or in their family or in a mission or purpose that they have in life. None of that, objectively speaking, if it is truth, will come close to spending time before Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament or partaking of his body and blood in the most holy Eucharist at Mass. That is the pinnacle of human experience. And so many Catholics are just dead to it. They don't even know it. They don't even know. And so I think why St. Paul says, some people are just walking around dead because they don't even realize what they're receiving. They're receiving the very contingent being which holds us all alive at this very moment.
Which makes me wonder if that is the core of the argument, because people are saying, I went to Catholic Church for all those years. I never felt anything. And then I did yoga, I did Buddhism, I did a silent retreat, and I felt peace. I felt spirituality. And a lot of people feel more spiritually connected to those things than the rites and rituals of the Catholic Church because they're so disconnected.
Yeah.
So what you said, I think could be true if people are participating. Most people go to church and aren't actually participating. How do you get engaged? What are your recommendations for people to feel the fulfillment you feel in the Eucharist?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it could be true. It is true. Like in the sense of like even so, I might get something very powerful by going out and sitting in the middle of a forest and meditating, and I might feel more connected to God doing that than I do going into a Catholic church and sitting through a mass that's got terrible music and a really awful homily. I might be so just like frustrated at that mass, or I might be thinking about work, whatever it might be. But it doesn't change the objective truth that still remains the pinnacle of the human experience as receiving Jesus in the body and blood of who he is. And so, like much of life, we it takes a while to cultivate and to recognize or recognize, to go back to first beginnings and see the glory of God in the midst of the Eucharist. And so to do that, you just have to go and be with him like daily. So every day I go to a church and I sit before the Blessed Sacrament. Every day, if I can, I try to make it, didn't make it today, but try to make it to daily mass to receive him. Because if that truly is Jesus Christ himself present on earth, then that's going to be the fulfillment of all desire. So just go to him. But what? We're too busy, right? I got work. Can't find it. There's 6 a.m. masses somewhere. There's a 7 a.m. mass somewhere. There's a noonday mass somewhere. I've got family. I got to take your family. Why aren't you taking your family with? Because like again, it is true or it is not true that Jesus is present in the Eucharist. And if he is, then we should do everything we can to get there.
Yeah. The spirituality thing I'm still struggling with because feeling it, why does it matter if you don't feel it? Does it matter? Is it the same if you don't believe it to be true? Like someone listening, half of my listeners are Christian Catholic, the other half aren't.
Yeah.
And so if you don't feel it, is there value in doing it?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's love. Like that's what love actually is. Like love sometimes comes with feelings, which is really great when they do come. But when I'm changing my 8th diaper, when I'm getting something else for Laura and I don't feel it at all, like I am making a sacrificial gift of myself because I am willing her good and I'm willing my child's good. And I don't feel it at all. But I would say that act is a higher act of goodness, of truth, and of beauty when I'm actually not feeling it than when I am feeling it. Because it's easy to do it when I feel it. It's easy to say God is real, God is love, God is beauty, God is when I'm feeling it. Like, praise the Lord, he's so good. I just got to raise. Thank you, Jesus. You are so good to me. But like real faith, real spirituality, real connection, real truth is, I don't feel it at all. Like, in fact, this hurts. This is painful. This is almost in a sense evil. Like what I'm experiencing. It is unjust what I'm experiencing. But it's not changing the nature of who God is. So Christ on the cross has no honor, has no wealth, has no like any earthly sense of power whatsoever, but he is living the pinnacle of the human experience because he's making a full, total, free gift of himself. And that death leads to the most amazing thing that's ever happened. A man came back to life, opened up eternal life for us. And so, yes, even if I don't feel it, as Christ did not feel it on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's still better than any feeling we can have on this side of earth.
I wonder if that's why men are waking up a little bit in our generation, because they long for manliness, which is inherently to suffer, to struggle, to grind, to use a modern word. And it seems like the boomer generation was trying to set things up, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to make a generational misspeak here, but to make things so their parents had been through so much that they tried to make the world so cozy, so safe, so protected that men are crying out for manliness. They want to go in the woods. They want to get hurt. They want to take risks. They want to feel fear. They want to be disciplined. They want to be in a relationship. They don't want pure comfort all the time because they know it's killing them inside. Could that have something to do with it?
Andy, 100 years ago, no one in the world was taking warm showers. I mean, we are so just lambasted with comfort in our particular modern world. I mean, the fact that we're even doing a podcast right now, we have all this technology all around and stuff like that. I mean, we are the part of the one. That's why I hate when I hear some progressive politicians say it's the 1%, it's 1%. I'm like, if you're living in this country, you literally are the 1%. Like, just travel a little bit around the world and you see how other people live. Like, we are so lambasted with comfort. But Pope Benedict said, we are not made for comfort. We are made for greatness. And I think men are waking up to that reality of like, I'm made for something more. Like, I can get all the comfort. I can get all the sex. I can have all the booze I want. I can have all the pocket, whatever. But like, this ultimately is not fulfilling me. Like, it feels good. It can feel good for like 10, 20, 30 years. It can feel good. But there's going to come a point where just like, it feels really empty at the end of the day. And so we can numb ourselves. We can take nicotine, whatever, you can take alcohol, drugs, all those things. But it's not going to lead us to our ultimate fulfillment. And, we mentioned feelings before, like the feelings like of encountering Christ in the blessed act, like those things will come, but that's not why we should do it. And that's why I don't even like talking about them, because I don't want people to go and not feel something, be like, well, Peter feels it, but I don't. Like, those feelings will come. They do. And then something else is going to come, which is even scarier, but even more powerful. Like, you're going to hear the voice of God. Like, God's going to speak to you. And it's going to be the most amazing thing you've ever experienced in your entire life. And it's going to be the most amazing feeling you've ever had in your life. But again, we don't want to do those things because of the feeling that we're going to get. We just want to do them because it's true, because it's beautiful, and it's going to make us holy. And if we're holy like God, then we're going to be happy.
So many corollaries coming to mind. Running long distances, a lot more people are getting into running. And when you run like plus 10 miles, that you start to hit really low valleys and then really high highs. Have you ever run a long distance?
No.
So
8 miles is the longest I've ever run.
That's a common experience. Did you feel it when you ran 8 miles? Like, you felt like you couldn't take one more step, and then maybe
but I felt like, this is amazing. This is great.
A couple minutes later, all of a sudden you could run forever.
Yeah.
And I found the longer I go, the harder it gets and the higher it gets. Same way with kids. It can be so incredibly tough. But also there are moments that are the most mystical, I'll call them, otherworldly moments, when that fat, soft baby skin is on your cheek. And it's like, you only get that if you put in the suffering to earn that.
Yeah.
And manliness, you don't get to achieve the peak without a lot of suffering. And it's not like, we've talked about this on the pod a lot, you never arrive. It's a constant journey, and there's peaks and there's valleys forever.
Yeah.
And wild. So, Center for Christian Virtue.
Yes.
What are you guys working on? What's your big project right now?
So the Center for Christian Virtue, we are kind of like the family policy council in the state of Ohio. And we have kind of 3 stools that makes up our chair, if you will. And all of it funnels into our public policy at the State House. So one chair is our Church Ambassador Network, serve about 4,500 different churches in the state of Ohio. Another stool to that is our Christian Education Network. So we help churches start their own schools so that we can get people out of the public education system. And then we have our Christian Business Partnership, where we work with Christian businesses to help them live the gospel in their businesses, and then also at the State House as well. So if there's a business issue that comes up, we have the Christian voice for businesses there as well. I work in the kind of the pro-life field, which is our, underneath policy, but pro-life, pro-family field. And there's 2 initiatives that I would want to highlight. One would be the work that we're doing in the pro-life field right now. I mean, President Trump, he's been called by some pro-life groups as the most pro-life president in history. Might be true, but I think the bar is pretty low for that as far as what we've set when it comes to our presidential leadership in that sphere. But we're trying to pressure the Trump administration right now to say, hey, look, the Biden administration removed any safeguards to the abortion pill, making it accessible online, where you can get this pill anywhere in the country at any time just by ordering it off the internet. And women are taking these pills, these abortion pills, at their home, and they're creating literally crime scenes at their home where babies are being killed in people's bathrooms, toilets, and they're being flushed down the toilet. So it's incredibly sad. It's and all we want to do is, as the Trump administration, just to reinstate the basic health and safety regulation that says a woman, before she chooses abortion, should see a doctor. She's making the most life-altering decision she may ever make in her life. She should see a doctor. Does she have an ectopic pregnancy? Because if she's taking the abortion pills with an ectopic pregnancy, it could be dangerous to her health. Does she have any other issues, a blood clotting disorder that she should be aware of that could be dangerous to her health? Does she have an IUD that should be removed before she has this abortion? All those types of things. Like, a woman should talk through with a doctor before she's making this very, impactful decision, to say the least. She should also know how far along she is. I mean, we have a woman here in Northwest Ohio. She's 16 weeks along, took these pills. You're only supposed to take them up to 10 weeks. And so
what happened?
She birthed a dead baby. Thankfully, she made it through the experience, but it could have been incredibly detrimental to her. But she, births this 16-week-old baby. And so this large child, comes out, versus what, they tell you online. It's just going to look like tissue and stuff. And a pregnancy center director went over and, helped her get the baby and take the baby into a funeral home. Talk about traumatic stuff.
She did it alone at home.
Yeah. She's got the pills and just takes them. Or you have the Toledo doctor, Dr. Abbas, who admitted that, he ordered abortion pills online, tried to force them down the throat of his girlfriend. He was married, forced them down the throat of his girlfriend at 4 a.m. in the morning. She calls 911. He takes the phone from her, hangs up. She makes it out of the house or apartment, goes into the hospital and everything like that. So Hassan loses his license right now, and he's in, his case is in the courts right now. Columbus Dispatch last Thursday, on the police scanners, this past Thursday, a father, where they were called to a scene because a father was forcing abortion pills down the throat of his daughter. So
incest.
Could be, we don't know. We don't know the whole story of, we got the video recording of the 911 call, but say all that to say, abortion pill is dangerous. Not only is it killing kids, but it's dangerous to have in the hands of abusers. It's dangerous in the hands in women who don't know about, whether or not this is going to be okay for their body, all those things, right? So we're just trying to get the Trump administration to, basic health and safety regulations first and foremost. And I hope even if you're pro-choice, you would agree with, let's get a doctor involved in this situation. How is it healthcare if it's just a woman sitting online ordering pills? So
this aside, I don't want all the stuff in the water. I want clean food. I'm eating organic, and I don't want there to be baby tissue in my municipality's water, which there must be. Yeah.
1 million abortions every single year. 60% of them.
In America or where?
In America, 1 million abortions that we know about every single year, because not all these at-home abortions are recorded, right? So, and even those numbers don't report, like states like California, for example, who don't send that in their numbers to the CDC. And California has incredibly progressive abortion laws where they have, abortion available on college campuses and things of that nature. But anyway, with that being said, if 60% of 1,600,000 are happening through medication abortion, where are those babies going? Where's that tissue going? Being flushed down the toilets all across the country. It's going back into the water system. And yes, there's purifying things that are, being used to purify our water, but that's gross. But think about it from a spiritual context. What happens when Moses goes up the mountain? He gets the 10 Commandments from God. He comes back down and he sees all these people with the golden calf and, these golden statues. What's their punishment? Do you know?
I think I do. Do they have to melt it and eat it?
They have to melt it, and they have to drink their own poison that they've been worshiping. And what are we doing right now in this nation? But it's disintegrating, and we're drinking our own poison, our own mortal wound or sin, if you will. Yeah. It's tough to think about, but it's true.
What's some of the best stuff you're working on? I want to wrap this
Yeah.
show up, but I don't want to end on that freaking morbid topic.
Well, yeah. So the second thing that I wanted to highlight is our hope and a future report. And I think this is where it gives us hope for the future. Jeremiah 29:11, Jesus or God speaking to the prophet Jeremiah to the nation of Israel, for I know the plans I have for you, and they are plans for a hope and a future. So what is the solution to ending abortion, to restoring our broken culture, to fighting back against the distruths of Darwinian evolution, the public school system, which has gone awry? The answer lies in the family. So 42% of our kids right now in the state of Ohio are born without their father in the household. By the time they're 17, that rises to 53%. And people might say, well, what's the big deal with that? Here's the big deal. Out of that 42%, which becomes 53%, the poverty rate for those families without the father present is 45%. Compare that to an intact family where dad is in the home, the poverty rate drops from 45% to 7%. So immediately, just from a social justice perspective, if you're looking at issues of poverty and all the issues that poverty carries with it, right? Whether or not someone is going to end up abusing alcohol, graduate high school on time, get a good education, get a good job, all those things. It is dependent upon mom and dad being in the household. 71% of high school dropouts are fatherless. It's such an indicator of success. The success sequence that we're passing at the State House right now, where we're inviting all our public schools to actually teach this. If you graduate high school, get a job, and get married before having children, over a 90% chance you will not end up in poverty in your life. And that's for every category. If you're white, if you're African-American, you're Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Graduate high school, get a job, and get married before having children. But what the sexual revolution did in the late 60s, early 70s, was it proliferated contraception in our culture. And it broke down the iron triangle which links sex, marriage, and baby making. It said, it's okay if you have sex outside of marriage. It's okay if you have a baby outside of marriage. None of that's really mattering because I just want to have sex, and I want to have sex with as many people as I want because I want my own personal fulfillment. And that's what I think is going to bring me happiness. Well, look what the hookup culture, the sexual revolution has done. It's left us with a fatherless generation. And fatherless kids are not as successful as kids with fathers in the home. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule, right? That you have two parents and maybe they weren't great parents and so on. So all that is true, but it doesn't change the rule that mom and dad point to success.
The probability is so much higher in one scenario over the other scenario.
100%.
Essentially, if you take a father out of the home, the kid has a 50% chance. It's a coin flip.
And all of this is because it's how God designed it. God designed us for unity, procreative life, and then community. This community that's created in the family, father, mother, son, a Trinitarian formula, which resembles the Trinity of who God is, Father, Holy Spirit, and the Son. And that's why there's such a lack of faith today, because there's been such a lack of family today. When I used to teach in the inner city of Cleveland, so many of my kids came from fatherless homes. And they're like, Mr. Range, how can I believe in a father, this heavenly father that loves me? I've never had an earthly father that loves me. Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we restore the family, we will restore the state, this nation, and ultimately as well the church.
Restore the family, restore the church, restore the nation.
Yeah. Where
can people find you if they want to know more, Pete?
And right down the road. No, just I'm moving. So I'm obviously on some social media, the channels, Peter Range 12 on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. You can look me up. But 12. Yeah, but I would the work is most important. So, ccv.org, which stands for Center for Christian Virtue, but ccv.org is a great place to kind of get engaged, get involved in these issues. And if you're listening, you work at a church or parish and want me to come out, I will not talk about Darwinian evolution, but I will talk about the family.
That's exclusive
that's
Oklahoma Project. I love it. Peter Range, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. Great to be with you, man.
Great
Thanks.
to be with you. See you next time, everyone. Hey, everyone. Quick 10-second ask from you. If you're digging the show and you're watching on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up and comment your favorite part. If you're listening on Spotify, please give this show a 5-star rating. On iTunes, please leave a quick review. If you're listening on Substack, please subscribe and join the comments. You may want to subscribe in a few different places. For example, YouTube, you get all of our short content, 60-second to 90-second clips, our segments where we segment out 1 to 6 minute different segments of each episode. And then if you subscribe on the Substack, I summarize the episode in a newsletter. You can read it in a couple minutes. And then a couple days after the episode, I put out a self-reflection guide to help you personalize the content to your life. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Please share it with a friend.